Alright guys, so in today's video I'm going to be talking about why most people don't succeed in trading, including myself. I'm going to be talking about things that I'm currently facing, and majority of these things that I'm talking about here are my, flaws that I have whenever I'm trading, or the mindsets, and the things that I'm doing wrong to not succeed in trading. And I feel like a lot of people can relate to this because, again, trading, most people don't succeed in trading, in day trading, because, again, we're human. We all have certain things that we do incorrectly and certain habits we can't break and certain mindsets we can't, break past from and, like, shift, our energy into, like, more positive or more contributing things. But, again, certain things if you really learn about more about yourself, you will probably be more successful, and that's why it's very, very important to reflect and to learn from your mistakes. But the first things first, again, they think only because they have watched the playlist they can be profitable or backtested 10 trades in 1-7 they can make it in live trading in real markets and be profitable, when in reality that's not the case. I feel like a lot of people get into trading and they learn from TikTok or some shit, like they learn from TikTok and they think after they watch a video from a 30-second clip they have context of how the markets work and, like, how they're going to be profitable, when in reality that is not the case. That is not the case. Some people take years and years of studying just to be successful in any sort of field. What makes you think watching a 30-second clip, a short form platform, gives you context on how trading works? That makes no sense. Like, certain people go to school for 4 years and choose a profession, and after that they still have to go through some training and then they get accepted. Like, it makes no sense trying to dumb down trading or do this and that, when in reality, like, that is only hindering your progress and is making you less successful as a trader. And I stand on that. Trying to rush the process because they want to impress others and quit their shitty job, which once more is all external focus, use that to channel it into internal inputs. So what I mean by its external focus is it's something that you really can't control. Like, same thing with the trade outcomes. You cannot control certain trade outcomes. Of course, you can have the edge and have a higher probability of winning them. That doesn't mean you control the outcome. Like, a trade one day can move to your take profit in 5 minutes. And then the next week, you can have a trade on a Wednesday afternoon move to your stop loss in 30 minutes or hit you break even. You can't control that. You can't control certain market conditions, but you can control when you enter. You can't control how much risk you put on. You can't control if you follow your system. You can control when you move your stop loss to break even, and your trade management. If you leave your TP there, or if you keep moving your TP up higher and higher, you become more and more greedy. You can control those certain things, or when you close a trade. Those are all things you can control. You can't control when you're gonna quit your job. You can't control that. Like, you can't control certain things like that. Of course, you can speed up the process and try to have a duration or a certain time goal for when you're going to reach it, but you can't control if it's guaranteed. You can show up every day and put in the work. That's something you can't control. Certain things you can control and certain things you can't control, and that's a basic principle in life. So again, stop trying to focus on external things, especially that causes more baggage in your trading, because, again, if you're coming into the markets, you're, like, thinking about, trying to make this amount and trying to have this amount to pass this challenge or have this, in the back of your mind, when in reality, you should not be thinking like that. You should be thinking about what the market is giving you, what information you have on what setups are going to be presented, or what setups can see likely occurring, certain things like that. What market conditions you're in, what news events we have, how much risk you're going to put on for this trade, what type of trade is it, what grade is it an A plus, is it a B plus, does this look like something you would not take on a live account or on a a funded account, certain things like that. And then that's the most important thing. Another one is fear of being wrong or avoiding failure. This is something I've really been fighting against this whole month. I wasn't backtesting simply because I feared that my new system that I've basically refined, the V2, wouldn't perform better than my previous system. I also had this dilemma in the back of my mind. I studied all these new concepts and I applied it to my new system here, so it has to be more profitable. It has to be better. I have to be winning these trades and have an 80% win rate, only because I studied these videos and my other system was having a 60% win rate before this, and that's flawed. And again, stop focusing so much on your win rate, this and that. That's, again, something you really shouldn't be focusing on. You should be focusing on more of the internal inputs. But yes, again, it's a very flawed system because, again, I was avoiding trying to backtest my new system, which I'm backtesting right now and collecting more data upon. But again, that's another reason why, simply because I was avoiding the fear of failure, not trying to fail using the new concepts that I've applied to my system. Because, again, I put in so much time to learn these new things and to incorporate into my system that I fear that if they're not working or they don't give me a certain result, then it doesn't work, but it's not the case here. It's me. Assume every setback is feedback to bring you closer to achieving the results or the goals you plan to reach. What is that? That is one very key thought that shifted my mindset, simply because, like, every time you try to avoid a failure or a losing trade, you always think of it as losing the progress you made, or you're not making progress at all, which is not the case. You have to shift your mindset, embrace losing. I think that's very, very important. That's why majority of these, very successful traders always talk about, becoming becoming like the best loser, or being really good at losing. And I never really understood why. I never understood why these people always preached about like being comfortable with losing. I always thought about like who in the back, like who in their like in the back of their mind really genuinely wants to accept losing. Like who's comfortable with losing? Like why would you ever be comfortable with losing? Until I really understood that in trading, every setback is feedback to bring you closer to achieving the results or the goals you plan to reach. Because like every losing trade, if you use it correctly, can be data to improve your system and to improve your eye. Like to seeing what you need to see to take a winning trade in the market. Every loss is a learning opportunity, and I never really understood that, and that's why I always avoided failure or like losing trades, because I deemed it as failure. I deemed it as not being successful. Like again, I'm just incorporating the shift, which is like not viewing it as failure, but more of an area where I can use. It's like a double-edged sword. Like if you can use it incorrectly, but you can also use it correctly. You can use it incorrectly in terms of like creating a negative habit and like creating negative self-beliefs and self-sabotaging yourself, in terms of thinking like I can't do this and that, or I can't do this and that, or I won't be, and I always I never blah blah blah. Those negative thoughts and those negative thought patterns that come into play whenever you're about to take a trade or something, or whenever you're going to try to pursue a new challenge in trading, and then you just think in terms of like, oh, I need to change my strategy. This trade didn't win, or I had a losing week, or I had a losing month. I need to do this and that. When that's not the case, If you shifted it to the other side of the sword, you can be like, okay, I took a losing trade, or I had a losing week this week. Let me go back to the drawing board. Let me see what I did wrong. Let me really reflect upon these decisions that I made. Let me learn from my mistakes. Let me journal them. Let me see what I did wrong on this day. What can I go back on that trading day and seeing what you could have done better, how you could have prevented that loss, and what you need to do next time. And that's basically really it. And you're going to continue to improve. You can continue to see the results you want to see over time. But again, it's not always going to be sunshine and rainbows, and it won't always be 100% win rate. It's not going to be the holy grail. You're going to receive if you continue to like think in that terms of mindset where like you need to keep doing this and then you keep learning doing this and you're going to have 100% win rate. When in reality, that's not the case, bro. If people in trading had 100% win rate, and these people on Instagram or TikTok and like these gurus online claim to have like a super high percent, high percentage win rate, this and that, there would be so many multimillionaires in trading, and the trading space would be completely different. Like there would be a certain amount of people succeeding, and then everybody would go to that person and try to succeed and be successful. You don't see that anywhere here. Nobody here is like 100% win rate, because it's a facade. It's clearly a facade. Clearly, just like if someone's claiming to have a high win rate and like you can pass this Profit Challenge in 1 week of joining my, it's like a facade. Of course, maybe they can pass, but how much long-term success can you have? Or join my Discord, you can make 100,000 your first month. Like I would never succumb to those ideas, because again, trading should never be about a monetary success or a monetary view. It should be more about trading is a reflection of yourself, and you should be focusing on yourself and focusing on what you can do as an individual to improve yourself, outside of trading and in trading. I think that's very, very important. Another thing too is the Dunning-Kruger effect in trading. Thinking you know it all since you watch an ICT playlist, or you watch this order flow concept playlist, or you watch this support and resistance supply and demand playlist, and a couple other people teaching those concepts, and then you think you know it all now. You think you know it all, you can go into a Profit Challenge and pass it all in 1 day or 1 week and be profitable and change your life in the next month or two. When in reality, you gotta be humble, apply the work, and continue learning. I think one of the best things you can do is continue to learn from people that are successful in that field, which is trading, and see what they did, what habits they created, what mindset shifts they had to do to reach the certain results you're aiming to achieve. Don't think of trading in terms of just concepts and learning concepts and trading those concepts, when in reality that's like 5% of trading, if I'm being truly honest. Trading is psychology, risk management, your approach to the markets, and just your journaling, your system, your data collection, all these important things. Those are the important things in trading. Trading should not be treated as some sort of technical view. Of course, that is very, very important. It's, again, just controlling yourself and doing the deep work inside. Another thing that I've done recently, or that view that shifted my mindset in terms of trading, is the 80-20 principle. Using that to understand your majority of your key improvements in your trading. Like what 20% of the inputs can you do to improve 80% of the output? I think, that's very, very important. What are your key habits? What are your key inputs that give you the 80% of the results that you want? Because it's an 80-20 principle, and doubling down on that 20%. I think that's super, super important. For me, it was journaling and reviewing the journal and applying the concepts. So what I mean by that is like I would journal some trades, okay, from my system. I would look at it, I would think about it, and then I'll go into like a back testing session that I'm doing right now. This is basically what I'm doing. I journaled certain trades, like hindsight trades, and this month, the trades I've journaled this month, I review them, I analyze them, I see the system playing out, this and that. I go into a back testing session and I back test them. And then eventually I continue to do that. From reviewing the journal of those back tested trades, I analyze them, I see what I can do right, improve next time, and I go into another session and I continue trying to do that and continue trying to improve. And again, going back to the Dunning-Kruger effect, I try to listen to podcasts of other successful, hedge fund, the Chicago Pitts traders, and or other, improve their trading, not from like a technical standpoint, but like a mindset, or a systematic view, like what they do before they come into the market, like what, there's so many other more important factors, as opposed to like just clicking the button. The very bottom of the view of trading, just clicking the button. It's more than that, it's way more than that if you want to make it a profession. Going back to what I was talking about earlier, the trying to avoid the fear, I think that's a big one that I was trying to, avoid always being wrong, or always, trying to avoid the losing days and the losing trades, and thinking of it as, like we're not making progress, or we're never going to succeed, and this and that, when in reality it's just bringing me closer to my goals and to achieving success. Even during those days where you crash out, I think those are some of the best days, honestly, because you're able to really reflect and like to really experience those moments. If you never experience certain moments, how are you ever going to improve and learn from, it's very, very important. And then another one was always caring about what other people think, which caused me to try to impress them and trying to do certain things for them. Like in trading, I would always try to pass a profit or make a payout and get this amount, or always like daydream about it. If I was successful in trading and I had this amount, or I made this amount and I bought this, and I would be able to impress this person and like care about what they thought about me, when in reality that should never be the case. I should care about what I think, how I'm operating, what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling. And that's, again, the most important thing I'm just trying to really develop right now, is not caring about other people, but not caring about what they think in terms of success and in terms of what success looks like, and not trying to impress them, not doing the things that I'm doing to impress other people, doing it for myself, doing it to make myself proud. And that's something I'm just really trying to work on and really shift my mindset, because again, a lot of people, we always care about what other people think about, and we always try to live to impress them, and I'm tired of living in that term, I'm tired of living in that way, just trying to impress the people in terms of my field of, what makes a successful person, and trying to impress them of my success, when in reality, that should never be the case. Caring about what they think way too much, I just care about doing things for other people, or doing things to impress other people and rushing the process. I'm tired of living like that, so yeah.